Welcome to Social Sideline, my first ever series aiming to engage football fans to let you have your opinions expressed. I'll be discussing the top stories and questions on Premier League football and analysing the stars so far. So let's get straight into the main topic of the video, which is Leicester City. In the Premier League so far, they are unbeaten, 1-2 and drawn 2, haven't lost yet, scored 6 and only let in 3. Therefore, that means they are third in the league and only Manchester City and Liverpool, the best two teams in the Premier League at the moment, are above them. So it's a fantastic start for Brendan Rodgers. After the end of last season, the last 6 months when he was in charge of them, they were brilliant and everyone saw that there was a big difference in the way they were playing. They sacked Claude Puel, moved on to Brendan Rodgers, and Yuri Tielemans came in. He was a loan signing that they made in January, and with him coming in and a change in manager as well, this made a massive impact on Leicester, and that the way that they were playing at the end of last season, people saw that if they could bring that into this season, then they're going to have a massive chance of doing something quite special. Before we get into that though, let's have a look at the players that have been making the difference this season so far. So currently with the most key passes and creating the chances, no surprise, is James Maddison. He's a class player. We saw that last season. He was doing this last season. Key passes, creating chances, putting the balls through for Jamie Vardy, who then finishes them. And we can talk about Vardy. He's already scored 3 this season. But like we just sort of said, it's not just Maddison who's creating the chances and playing the key passes for Jamie Vardy. It's Yuri Tielemans too, who's now there on a permanent deal. They signed him in the summer for £40 million. And completing the midfield is Wilfred Ndidi. He's someone that I've talked quite a bit about on this channel already. He's made 13 interceptions, and that is already the joint second most in the Premier League so far. But realistically, I guess it's no surprise because for the past few seasons, he's been doing this all the time, and being at the top of the most interceptions is just what he does now. We just come to expect this. I think with this midfield three, Leicester have got something that a lot of other teams would want. They've got a really creative player and someone who does it really well in James Maddison. He partners up with Yuri Tielemans, who's another creative player, but he also goes a little bit deeper too. And then Wilfred Ndidi, who's just an out-and-out defensive midfielder, and he literally just does all the dirty work higher up the pitch, and he's class. So they've just got these 3 players who do all the different roles to perfection, it seems, as well. And it just makes it even better that the guy up front, Jamie Vardy, has been there for years and years now, and he's just carrying on bagging the goals for them. So that now brings us to the top question of this episode of #Social Sideline, which is, can Leicester seriously challenge for top 4 this season? So this is where this series really comes alive. I want you to tweet with the #Social Sideline, or comment down below your thoughts, your answers to this question. Let me know what you're thinking right now. Can Leicester really push for that top 4? Will they finish in the top 6? I'm sure really top 6 is what they're pushing for. However, with them starting off unbeaten, I think it's a good question to ask, can they get into the top 4? Because now as we move on and talk about the other teams, they haven't really been performing as we really expect them to. For example, Chelsea. Let's look at their game against Sheffield United. So quite amazingly, they were 2-0 up at home and ended up drawing 2-2. Both of Chelsea's goals were scored by Tammy Abraham, which is fantastic for him. Already before the international break, he started scoring goals for Chelsea, which is huge for them. Before the season started, the question about Chelsea was, where are the goals going to come from? How are they actually going to be able to win games with Eden Hazard leaving, who really just did a lot for Chelsea? Creativity, creating chances, scoring goals. Obviously, they didn't really replace him. They couldn't really replace him with the restrictions that they had. So it was really down to the loanees coming back. Mason Mount, Tammy Abraham. They are really seen as Chelsea's new signings this summer. And also Mason Mount, he started off well. 2 goals for him. And also he's got into the England squad, which says a lot about him. However, with that being said, back to the Sheffield United game, both goals were scored in the first half for Chelsea by Tammy Abraham. He was unlucky not to score a hat-trick then. I think it was into the second half. Dean Henderson made a fantastic low save. But yeah, into the second half, Sheffield United came back into it. Callum Robinson, their new signing, scored his first goal for Sheffield United. But Callum didn't stop there for goal contributions. It came to the 89th minute, where we saw him on the left-hand side. He whipped in a cross, and then it came off Kurt Zouma for an own goal. For a moment, it looked like like Lise Mousset had scored his first goal for Sheffield United too. Unfortunately for him, it didn't come off him, it did come off Kurt Zouma. However, I think it's good for him though. He was involved in a goal, he pressurised Kurt Zouma, and I think you can definitely say that he was involved in the goal. And if it wasn't for him being there in the first place, then it wouldn't have gone in the back of the net. So I think on Sheffield United's part, and for Chris Wilder to look back on the first 4 games, they've done brilliantly. They've picked up points, they've got a great comeback against Chelsea at Stamford Bridge as well. The fighting spirit is obviously there, they've come back from half time and being able to get a point out of that game, which is fantastic for them. So out of their first 4 games, they've only lost one, and that's to Leicester City. Everyone was writing them off. You know, I made my video on them, I told everyone why they were going to shock the Premier League, and I think they're starting to do that. I think they're starting to shock the Premier League. People didn't really even expect them to pick up as many points as they have so far, and definitely not to draw against Chelsea. So their next league fixtures are Southampton, Everton and Liverpool. So really you look at this on paper and Southampton is the easiest game. They'll be looking at that one and thinking this is where they can try and get their win. Everton will be that bit tougher. They've got a fantastic attack and that is something that I actually want to talk about in another video soon. But you never know, they drew against Chelsea, so what could they do against Everton? And well, Liverpool, this is their massive test. What can they do against the Liverpool side? I'm sure they'll try their best. I think it's really how many goals are you going to let in? I think they'll be trying to minimalise how many go past Dean Henderson in this game. So let me know, maybe that's another thing to talk about. How many points will they pick up from these 3 games? And do you think they can keep this start going throughout the whole of the season? Once again, comment down below in the YouTube comments or tweet with the hashtag #SocialSideline. In the next video, I'll probably come back to some of these points and the best comments that you have left, the best tweets that you've put out, and I'll talk about your thoughts on these topics that we're discussing right now. Next up is another top 6 side in Manchester United. The latest game was a 1-1 draw with Southampton. Southampton, which we're saying should be an easy win for Sheffield United. However, yet the Saints did get a draw and a point against Manchester United. It seems like we've already got an insight into the problem at Manchester United. They can't really seem to break down a defensive team. Crystal Palace and Southampton, 2 teams who have sat back defensively, got all men behind the ball, and not let Manchester United have any space. It's clear that Ollie and his men, what they're trying to do is play on the counter-attack. When a team is attacking, Marcus Rashford, Anthony Martial, Daniel James get on the ball, run forward, fast sprint, get into the box as quick as possible and grab a goal. We saw this against Chelsea. Pogba played a great ball over the top. Marcus Rashford was able to run behind the defenders and finish. When Manchester United have been scoring, the goals seem to have all come through Daniel James. He's had a brilliant start to the season and this goal against Southampton was a great goal. Teams are realising that they can't let Marcus Rashford, Anthony Martial and James get on the ball and run at them because they are dangerous when they get to do that. In the summer, Manchester United fans were asking for another midfielder to be signed. And you have to look at it and think that is right. That is exactly what they needed. A Bernardo Silva, maybe Kevin De Bruyne style player who can get into one of these games, get the ball and just make something happen out of nothing. When you watch Manchester City, you see that Bernardo Silva and Kevin De Bruyne just seem to play great balls to Raheem Sterling, Aguero, run at defenders and like I said, just make something happen out of nothing. When you watch Manchester United and they're trying to break a defence down, you see that the midfield just lacks that creative spark. Everyone looks at Paul Pogba to be that man to take the ball and run forward and play the great balls, but he just goes missing now and again. There's a great player in their youth system called Angel Gomez. He's quite a small player, but what he's got is fantastic technical ability. He's a player that's great to watch because it's like, what is he going to do next? He will get the ball and he will run at people. So in my opinion, I don't see why Manchester United aren't starting him. If I was the manager right there, I'd be saying it doesn't matter how old you are, let's just play you and see how you do in the next game. And talking about the next game, it's against Leicester City, so not an easy game for Manchester United. Leicester unbeaten so far, like we've said, and now they'll be looking at this and thinking this is exactly why we needed to pick up points against Crystal Palace and Southampton. In this game, you look at it and you probably think that Manchester United are going to drop points again. Not a brilliant time for them. Can Ollie change it around? Can some of these youth players maybe come into the team and make a difference? If there's any Manchester United fans watching right now, comment below or tweet with the hashtag #SocialSideline and let me know your thoughts on the situation at your club currently. So in the week before the international break, we also had the North London derby. This game was a game with two contrasting halves. Arsenal really came alive in the second half, and maybe this was down to the goal just before half time by Lacazette. You always say that if you're losing the game, it's always good to get a goal before half time. It makes makes that team talk just that bit different. The players go into the changing room with a bit of confidence, they've got a goal. And in the second half, you never know, you could come out as a different team, and they did exactly that. Looking at some statistics here, we can see that in the second half, Arsenal really pushed on and were attacking a lot more. The attacking third passes for Arsenal, they made 93, whereas Tottenham only made 24, and from those passes, the amount of chances created for Arsenal was 12, whereas we saw with Tottenham, they only made 4. And it wasn't just one man for Arsenal who was creating all those chances. Maitland-Niles, Xhaka, Torreira and Ceballos all created 2 chances each. I think for me, even though Arsenal were 2-0 down in this game, to come back and draw against Tottenham is a good sign for them, and personally I look at Arsenal and say that they have been fairly impressive. Another goal for Aubameyang and Lacazette, which I'm sure will be a continuing theme throughout this season. As we said, all those players created 2 chances each, and with Aubameyang and Lacazette up front finishing it off, it's a great setup for Arsenal, and they're not going to be short on goals. In my opinion, when you look at the top 6 sides, Liverpool, City, Arsenal, Tottenham, Chelsea, Manchester United, I think when you rank these, you've also got Liverpool and City nearer the top, and in third I think is Arsenal. I think they've been the best out of those top 6 sides who aren't Liverpool and Manchester City, if that makes sense. Like we say with Leicester coming into contention for those European spots, there's going to be some teams pushed out the way a bit, but I don't think Arsenal will be one of those. Just briefly then on the other teams and the table right now, Liverpool at the top, won every game so far. Manchester City have dropped points, they got that draw against Tottenham, so at the moment there's a 2-point gap at the top with Liverpool and Manchester City. The other team in a surprising place at the moment is Crystal Palace in 4th, and it is quite surprising that they are there. They've only scored 3, but then again they've only let 2 in. I doubt that they'll be here for much longer, but you never know. The next game is against Tottenham. Could they carry on this good defensive record that they started the season with against Tottenham? Score predictions for that game? Maybe leave them in the comments again. They're on 7 points, and it's the same for Arsenal, Everton and West Ham. They are all on 7 points too. And then at the very bottom of the table is Watford on 1 point. I didn't know whether to do another episode of this where I talk about Watford, but obviously they've now sacked their manager and appointed someone else within 31 minutes. It's like fans are surprised, but they're also just not surprised. Watford just seem to sack managers all the time now. Also then in the relegation zone are 2 of the newly promoted teams, Norwich and Aston Villa. And then just outside the relegation zone in 17th place is Wolves. They're actually still looking for their first win too. 3 draws and a loss for them. I'm sure they'll be fine and be able to get to winning ways fairly soon. After Brighton's really good start under Graham Potter, they have since dropped down the table a bit in 16th place now. Their next game is at home to Burnley, so I'm sure they'll be looking at this one and trying to get 3 points from this. So there we are. I think that brings me to the end of this episode of #SocialSideline. Be sure to leave all your thoughts and everything. There's quite a lot of different things in this video to talk about. Tweet me, #SocialSideline, or comment down below. I want to start doing these videos a lot more often too, where I can just do unscripted talking about the latest topics in football, so I'd also appreciate some feedback on this series too. I recommend that you don't miss future videos. Subscribe to Route 1 and like the video if you did enjoy.